gummidge, to dark and disturbing urban slices of fear like Smoke Ghost. His collected fiction amounted, I argued, to nothing less than a library of fantasy that encompassed almost all of its possibilities. While the convivial atmosphere of that bar no doubt encouraged some subtle exaggeration on my part, it also started me thinking about a book of new stories that might encompass as wide a range of types of fantasy story as possible, from traditional fantasy to military fantasy, to quirky, strange tales of the impossible. The idea stayed with me, and when I was discussing possible new projects with Jonathan Oliver, my editor at Solaris, I mentioned doing such a book. He shared my enthusiasm, and before I knew it, we'd agreed that I'd edit a new anthology for Solaris that tentatively was to be called Reap the Whirlwind, and would bring together a selection of all new mainstream fantasy stories, for want of a better term, by some of today's best and most exciting writers. It wasn't long, though, before we realized that title didn't really describe what we were attempting, and when the wonderful cover art from Tomasz Jędruszek arrived early in 2012, we knew the title had to change. After some discussion, we came up with Fearsome Journeys, which I think aptly describes the beginnings of so many fantasy stories, including the ones that ended up in this book. Happily, Jonathan also suggested that we should subtitle the book The New Solaris Book of Fantasy. Fearsome Journeys was to be the first in a series of anthologies, not of new fantasy, but simply of fantasy, covering all of its many variations. As the stories came in, first from Trudi Canavan, then KJ Parker, Kate Elliott, Daniel Abraham, Glen Cook, and more, it became clear this first new Solaris book of fantasy was going to exceed my expectations. Those stories, and the ones from Saladin Ahmed, Jeffrey Ford, Robert V.S. Redick, Elizabeth Bear, Scott Lynch, Ellen Kushner, and Ysabeau S. Wilce, and Ellen Klages, have been a joy to read and I think make for a wonderful start to this new series. I'm already at work on Volume 2, which should be out late in 2014, but in the meantime, I hope you enjoy these fine stories as much as I have. Jonathan Strahan, Perth, Western Australia, January 2013.
The Effigy Engine, A Tale of the Red Hats, by Scott Lynch. 11th Mithun, 1186, Painted Sky Pass, North Alara.
I took up the study of magic because I wanted to live in the beauty of transfinite mathematical truths,
said Rumstendell. He gestured curtly. In the canyon below us, an enemy soldier shuddered, clutched at his throat, and began vomiting live snakes. If my indifference were money, you'd be the master of my own personal mint, I muttered. Of course, Rumstendell heard me, despite the pop, crackle, and roar of musketry echoing around the walls of the pass. There was sorcery at play between us to carry our voices, so we could bitch and digress and annoy ourselves like a pair of inebriates trading commentary in a theater balcony. The day's show was an ambush of a company of Iron Ring legionnaires on behalf of our employers, the North Alarans, who were blazing away with arquebus and harsh language from the heights around us. The harsh language seemed to be having greater effect. The black-coated ranks of the Iron Ring jostled in consternation, but there weren't enough bodies strewn among the striated, sunset-orange rocks that gave the pass its name. Hot lead was leaving the barrels of our guns, but it was landing like kitten farts, and some sly, magical bastard down there was responsible. Oh, for the days of 6 months past.